I'm Greg Hunter, and this is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, December 2nd, 2011. Well, it's official. The Federal Reserve has decided to bail out Europe again. They're doing it with something called dollar swaps, and basically they're printing money to bail out banks over in the Eurozone. Well, actually, they're not printing money. They're creating electronic digital currency, and they're handing it over to the European Central Bank. Now, the European Central Bank, they create digital euros. That's collateral. Can you imagine that? Digital currency as not land, not gold, not oil, digits in a bank account. So we're creating all this currency, and who knows how much ultimately the Federal Reserve will create. I mean, after all, after the last calamity, they pumped out $16 trillion, and the only reason why we found out about that is because of a special provision put in the Dodd-Frank bill by Senator Bernie Sanders. But at any rate, I digress. What this is going to cause is inflation for the average Joe. No doubt about it. You know, the rich, they'll just get paid some more money. They don't care whether gas is 6, 7, 8. They'll just get paid another $100,000 that year. For teachers and lawyers, well, not lawyers, teachers and carpenters and cops and firefighters and, us little people, we don't really get paid that much more money to make up for the inflation. The little people, which is, 99%, just get squeezed by inflation. And more of that is surely coming. On the other side of the Atlantic, Mario Draghi, the head of the ECB, says they want budgetary discipline, and that that the ECB will be willing to help more people as long as the individual countries basically give up some of their sovereignty and let a central planner approve their budgets. Yeah. Can you imagine? Well, how would that work? Would Italy submit a budget, and then central planning, some ECB wonk, some European central banker would approve? That's too much money spent on kids, school programs, and you got to raise your retirement age, and those pensions are too much. And could you imagine that they're going to give up some of their sovereignty, and they're being threatened with Armageddon and mass layoffs? And let me get this straight too. There's a new leader in Greece. He's a former Goldman banker. There's a new leader in Italy, a former Goldman banker. The new head of the European Central Bank, you guessed it, it's a former Goldman banker. These are the people, not just Goldman, but the bankers in general. These are the people, the bankers, caused this giant mess. They caused it with greed, recklessness. They, in some cases, I think, fraudulent activity. They paid themselves bonuses. They paid themselves commissions for these loans that they handed out. And now when it all blows up, bing, it's on to the taxpayer. We don't want to take any losses. We're not going to wash out this debt. We want you guys to cut your budgets and sacrifice and pay back the bankers. That's what's going on. A member of the European Parliament, it's called an MEP, his name is Nigel Farage, says that democracy is willfully and deliberately being destroyed in Europe. I couldn't agree with him more. And I think it's willfully and deliberately being destroyed here in the U.S. with all these banker bailouts, particularly the ones going out through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. $20 billion this quarter alone, and not a word by either party and none of the mainstream media. Next up, China. This story broke here in the U.S., but actually this happened almost 2 weeks ago. It came out on Chinese state-run television that China will defend Iran even if it means starting World War III. Yep. Nothing happens on Chinese television, state-run television, without the higher-ups knowing about it. I think this is a warning shot across the bow of the U.S., Israel, NATO. Hey, this is serious. Meanwhile, off the Syrian coast, there are Russian warships. Told you about that last week. Now we find out that Russia has sold Syria some cruise missiles. Do you think this could get out of control in a hurry? You betcha. Watch out for this story. This is the black swan of black swans, the blackest of black swans. In the recovery What recovery? Unemployment once again shot back up over 400,000 a week, actually 402,000. If you computed unemployment the way it was done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 1994 or earlier, according to shadowstats.com, unemployment would really be about 22.9%. Yeah, nearly 23%. Also in the what recovery section, Kay Schiller just came out this week and said housing prices down again. Another 4% annually. Now think about this. The Federal Reserve is crushing interest rates to down around 4% for 30-year mortgage notes. 30-year money, 4%. Okay? The government is handing out, basically supplying 90% of all mortgages in this country. We just had a home buyer program, and housing prices are falling. 4%, 30-year money, housing prices are falling. What do you suppose will happen when they are forced to stop suppressing interest rates and they go back to 5.5%, 6.5%, 7.5%? Yeah, housing prices are not done falling by a country mile. Personally, I think they could be down in some areas by 40%. Another 40% in the next 5 years. Finally, General Motors. They had some fires in some crash testing in their Chevy Volt. They had about 3. And General Motors says, hey, listen, bad news. Anybody who's not comfortable with this car will buy back your car. Now, that's a little more than 6,000 of these Chevy Volts. And at first you might think, oh no. Well, you know what? Wait a minute. Now, instead of Chevy having to get sued by somebody who loses their family in one of these fires or burns down a house, General Motors says, we'll buy your car back. We're going to fix this car. We're going to give you a loaner car. We're going to make this right. It's only 6,000 cars. It's not going to sink Chevrolet. Not going to sink General Motors. Hey, hats off to you, General Motors. Too bad the bankers don't come out and say, we sold you sour debt. It was not equal to a treasury. It's in the trillions of dollars. We're going to buy it back. Ha! That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.